Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today, and a special welcome to our guest, Sharif Syed. Welcome, Sharif. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's great to be here.
Sharif in a moment. And I just wanted to thank you all for coming. As you know, today's webinar will be about 30 minutes. We're going to try to get through a lot of really good content for you really quickly so you can kind of get back to your day and not spend too much time dilly-dallying with us. There will be a few polls along the way. As I mentioned before, all of those polls are going to be anonymous. So feel free to just answer away. No one will know who you are. The first poll, before we get going, is up right now. The question is, what's more valuable? A newly enrolled person, a retained person, or are they worth the same? And I'm about to end this poll. So if you haven't voted, go ahead and do so now. The answer so far has been unanimous, a retained person. Now, perhaps I'm just preaching to the choir, because if you are showing up at this webinar, and maybe you already are the people that we want to know and that are our kind of brethren and sisters in the direct selling space. So I'm really happy to hear that people see retention as valuable as you do. So that's wonderful. I'm gonna go ahead and end that poll. Welcome, everyone. Really happy to see you. Let me get into presentation mode here so we can share some information about promotions, personalization, and focus, incentivizing retention behavior. The first thing we wanted to start with is this question, why? Why is retention something that we need to focus on? In my a little over a decade now in the industry, I hear a lot of talk about retention. I hear a lot of people saying, hey, we know retention is valuable. We know that if we can just make our retention just a little bit better, it's going to equal a lot of revenue. And then what I find in most conversations is when we try to dig a little bit deeper to find out, well, how valuable is valuable, or how much more revenue is a lot? What is it? How valuable is it really? That's where it kind of starts to break down. And that's understandable, because in a network marketing or multi-level, at least, environment, doing the math to figure out how a little increase in retention is actually going to have those network effects and increase revenue is no small feat. So one of the things we'll offer all of you today is, if you'd like a free session to kind of figure out what those numbers could be for you, we have a team that spent about 150 hours building a calculator where you can put 5 numbers in there and get the results of any increase in retention for your specific business. I think you'll find that interesting. But the thing that's really important, in the analogy that I like to use, is that most direct selling companies in terms of sales and enrollments are kind of running up an escalator that's going down. And what that means is there's a certain number of people in your company every month that are buying something for the first time, and there's a certain percentage of people that are buying something for the last time. And the difference between that is your growth or your not growth. And the ratio for what we find with most companies is that if they're running up that escalator at a 10, the escalator is going down at an 8. And so we've done these numbers for about 60 different direct selling companies, most in the top 100 at this point. And that's usually the ratio that we see. For every 10 steps they're running up, the escalator is going down 8. Now, if you're in sales or marketing, man, that must sound like a really exhausting number to have to accept, because that means that 8 out of 10 of everyone your people work so hard to get are really just kind of playing catch up with the churn. And that affects all of your key metrics. Net active, obviously, lifetime value, continuous ordering, new revenue, enrollments, right? If one of those nodes on the tree dies, it doesn't continue going, so you don't get new people from that node anymore. Leader creation and rank advancements are ones that people don't think about very often, but if you have a comp plan, a great example is maybe level 3 and some comp plan has you needing a structure that requires, let's say, about 15 people on the team in order to hit that second or third promotion, in the business. And people think, yeah, all I got to do is fill this structure out with about 15 people, and they run and they get 15, and they turn around and 8 are gone. And then like, oh boy, okay, 8 more. And then they got to run, they got to go to 8 more, and they get those 8 more, and they turn around and 4 more are gone. And they go and get those 4 more, and they go turn around, 2 more are gone. And so by the time they're done, that 15 is really more like 25. Right? And depending on your churn rate, that 15 can turn into 30 or 20, depending on your churn rate. And so rank advancement and rank maintenance have a huge anchor that they're dragging, which is called your churn rate. And so when you figure it out and you do the math, and again, this calculator is available to you if you want it, For every 1% you can increase your retention, on average, you're going to find about a 5% annual lift. So if you can hold that 1% of monthly retention for 12 months, you're going to see a 5% annual lift in the first year and even more in your second year. That averages out, again, doing this business case for about 60 companies. That's going to be about the average for you. It could be 4, it could be 7, but somewhere in there. And of course, we can't miss that this particular year in direct selling has seen a lot of companies with a lot of heavy growth. And if you're one of those companies and you've been watching your churn rate, I'd be willing to bet that 9 out of 10 of you are seeing a strong increase in churn as well. And so it comes with a double-edged sword, this kind of growth, because as you're getting through these recruiting booms, once they eventually wane, that big churn rate catches up with you and you start to see what has been coined in this industry as pop and drop, right? And that doesn't only happen with growth spurts. Promotions cause that kind of thing. A lot of promotions can cause that as well. And we're going to kind of get into that. But the most important thing to understand about that is if you don't act now, you pay later. Right. And so the question to think about is, what does retention really mean to you? How important is it to your company beyond something that's spoken about, but in terms of action and resources? How does that really signify how important it is to you and your company? And does somebody in your company actually own it? Is it somebody's KPI? Is someone's performance being measured on the improvements in retention? Because what we don't measure, we can't manage, and what we don't incentivize, we don't get. Right. And so if there's someone in your company that does that, great. In future webinars, you're gonna discover a company that actually has an entire department just dedicated to retention. But if you don't have that, at least someone, we highly recommend it. So with that, I want to move into introducing our fantastic guest today, Sharif Syed. Sharif and I have known each other for a few years now. Sharif has spent over 10 years in the direct selling industry. Most of that time was spent at Advocare, where he was director of sales for the Northeast region. Many of you know the history of Advocare. They went through a long period of big growth. Sharif's market was actually the fastest growing market in Advocare during that time. So much that he eventually was promoted up to being senior director of sales operations, which is where Sharif and I met and had an opportunity to collaborate together on a couple of retention initiatives. Sharif is also a guest lecturer on personal growth and leadership, most recently at Drexel Medical School. And most recently now, he is the VP of Sales and Marketing for the US at Pure, where he continues to emphasize retention as a top KPI. So Sharif, thank you, my friend. It's great to have you today.
It's great to be here, Michel. Thank you for the opportunity.
So let's dive right into it. We're going to talk about 3 different things that you've done at different companies to affect retention. And we're going to start with promotion. So let me put another poll up there for people. Watch out, everybody. Another question to answer. Remember, your answers are anonymous, but let's look at it. When you're looking to run a promotion, what sort of ROI are you expecting? What kind of return on that spend? 2x, 3 to 5x, 5 to 10x, or 10x or more. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to answer this while we talk to Sharif. Sharif, tell us a little bit about your approach to promotions and some of the stuff that you learned along the way.
Well, I can tell from the first poll about our audience caring a lot about mostly retaining an individual. I think a lot of people are going to agree with me that promotions are very expensive and they create behaviors that it's really hard to overcome. So I know that's not new to anybody else, but it also creates people to wait for the next deal, and then it puts us in the situation where we have to come up with bigger, better promotions. So it puts a strain on the entire company. But you said something that I wanted to bring up, and that is that in this industry, there's a lot of talk about retention, but not a lot of action behind retention. And I think the reason why, Michel, because of that, is because we value that new story so much. We need that new person to come through the door, and we need to show off the credibility of our products and our company because of it as well. But at the same time, with the segmentations that when I got to work with you and you showed us the different segmentation between customers and our distributors, we realized that there was a ton of new stories right there in front of us that we've never shared before that's been a part of our company for many years. And so it opened up this new door that kind of allowed us to make promotions even better, because we did two things. We realized that promotions had to change to match people's needs, and we need to make them the incentives to make them personalized and follow up with the tools so that they can better execute these promotions and just their business in general as well.
Yeah, and I remember us talking a little bit about that and kind of figuring out what's the definition of a promotion really working, right? Like, is it just that revenue that happens in the month of the promotion, or is there a longer view, right, into how to understand what the effect of that promotion really was?
Yeah, that's right. And so I'm interested about this poll about the ROI, because is the ROI mostly going to be measured by the pay cycle, or is it going to be amongst a 12-month or longer span? And so that those were some of the insights that I was so thankful to be able to learn, but also be able to track as well when we started to do promotions differently, because the ROI and the conversations with amongst the internal team, which actually cascaded on how we trained our field to be better partners with executing these promotions. It changed the dynamic of that conversation in general. Obviously, we wouldn't talk to the field about ROI, but it helped us with being able to execute these promotions better.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we kind of noticed, right? Is that you might see, whoops, jumped the gun here. You might see a chart of your promotions kind of starting to look a little bit, kind of like this, right? Not too different. And
That's
so
exactly right.
let me end the poll and then we'll start the other one. So it's a pretty interesting spread here. Most of you are voting 2x the cost, a little bit on the 3 to 5, a little bit on the 5 to X, and one person voted 10x or more. So it's kind of an interesting spread. I thought it would be different, but that's interesting to see. 2x the cost seems to be the majority here. So let's talk a little bit about segmentation and what that did in terms of how it helped you think about your promotions a little bit more. Originally, there was this kind of idea that we kind of look, and everyone knows this in the industry, right? We see our customers and our reps as kind of one big group. The kind of legacy thinking in direct selling is what I like to call the one ring to rule them all strategy, right? Like the one duplicatable system that you make everybody do, and like it kind of all comes out in the wash that you see
That's
growth.
right.
How did you start to look and realize that it was a more nuanced situation than that, Sharif?
Well, a lot of the times at the home office of every company, we spend 100% of our time with what we think is the 1% of our field. We really don't spend a lot of time with even customers or even our 1% most loyal customers. We spend all of our time with those, what we believe is our 1%ers, our upper level leaders or legacy leaders, and they actually don't even make up what is really the leaders. And so we utilize segmentation in a whole new way, where we make sure that as much as we possibly can, is that we know, and we can set this up by asking the right questions upon entry at the right time, but we know exactly who they are. And if we're just talking about, for example, our distributors, we want to make sure that we're able to motivate them in a way that they want to be motivated. Because at one point, and it's common, promotions will be, hey, we want everybody to earn this exact same promotion, but it doesn't relate to everybody. So there's really
that changed your promotion strategy, right? So you guys
not only promotion strategies, it's changed, it's inspired us in so many ways. And so if I look at what I was able to do here at Pure in just the year that I've been here, it has changed our dynamic and relationship with them to really treat them like business partners. Yes, we love them. Yes, we're with them. Yes, we lock arms with them, and we care about their personal goals, but they want to know that we are setting them up in a way to succeed. And so here at Pure, we set up what we just call it what it is. We don't put no fancy, clever name behind it. We put brick to forehead. It's a retention bonus. We want them to know that they are being rewarded for retention. It's pretty simple for everybody that may be listening. You earn 20% on the first purchase order, that's acquisition, that's not retention. But on every reorder from a customer that's paid monthly, you can make all the way up to 50%. And so that changes the dynamic of the way we train. It's led to 93%. 93% of the people who've ordered this month have ordered every month this year. So we're really excited about it. And it's new. Like the biggest thing about a new new launch of anything is that do people know it? Do people understand it? Is it simple? Is it brick to forehead? At Advocare, we were scared to tell people about churn or teach them about that, which was proven to be way wrong. We needed to make sure that what we knew that the best relationships with our customers or IBOs at large were our leaders. So being able to give them the tools that they needed to be able to service that person was the best time and place to be spent, was with those distributors, not necessarily on outbound calls or emails. So it changed our behavior by making sure that we had a tool to give to them.
So it sounds like, through understanding segmentation and understanding that there are different groups of people in your field and in your customer set that kind of are approaching the business in a different way, seem to have a very different value proposition, seem to value money more or less than other groups, and so on. You could provide a more personalized experience for them. So whether it's in the case of promotions, where you could, instead of having them all kind of push up toward what a top performer would do. I remember that one promotion you guys did where it was like about beat your own personal best from last year, right? Like, so be the better version of you, as opposed to always trying to be someone that you're very unlikely to ever become.
That was one of my favorite promotions. It was about be your best, beat your best. And so their back office reporting was all about what they did in that time frame a year ago and how can they beat themselves. There was also, for all those go-getters, because we got those go-getters, those 5%ers that want to be the best, they saw their standings. So if they wanted to compete with everybody else, they can do that too. But the prize itself was also personalized. So we made it personalized all the way throughout. Here at Pure, I'll have actual company-wide type promotions that will be only given to one organization. And it's gone very, very well. And it's been exciting. And even the upper level leaders would like to learn about what one has done compared to the other and maybe switch their ideas. It's caused a new type of interaction amongst the field that has increased the level of thinking amongst all of us.
Mm-hmm. So we've got two different features here that we're talking about that kind of affect people on what I might call the macro level, right? Like one solution that you can spread out to people, or maybe by segment, that en masse kind of drives behavior on a mass sort of way, the compensation bonus, the promotions. Let's move into the next thing where we focused together, which was how do we kind of make it even more personal? How do we take that personalization all the way down to the individual level and be able to scale that, right? Because if you've got tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people out there, how do you be able to give them the individualized attention that they need, especially at the moment when someone's going to leave? And this is where we work together on distro. The first thing we did was we talked about this destiny moment, right? That there are these key moments in the journey of a customer or a representative where the right communication from the right member of their upline is going to increase their lifetime value. And some examples of these are they're going to churn in 30 days, right? So you can use our AI or another AI algorithm to predict that. They cancel their subscription, their first order just arrived. Let's get them to open the box, right? And let's get them to actually start consuming. They're ready to upsell or cross-sell, right? Amazon does that to us all the time. Their AI is predicting if you buy this and doing this, then you're ready for that. They abandon the cart, right? And now we want to get that distributor to be like, hey, what's up? You were shopping, what happened? And so many other things. But in our particular case, Sharif, we focused on this idea that we could predict that somebody was in the last 30 days of their life cycle. And I remember that's when you guys started coming up against that, whoa, do we want to let people know this? Right? Like you were saying earlier.
Right. That's absolutely right. And you talk about the destiny moment, and you brought up Amazon.
Yeah.
So the destiny moment for Amazon, maybe not the same analogy, but I noticed though that not too long ago, it's maybe over a year now, they started taking pictures of when they dropped the package off on your doorstep. Well, that is them thinking about their destiny moment, right? Because what was the biggest hit on Amazon was that the delivery people were throwing it up against the door. And so now they're showing their way of increasing, or maybe taking advantage of their destiny moment and increasing that relationship between themselves and that person that ordered from them. so that it won't be
Well,
the
there are
last
all
time
these
they
key
order.
moments, right? And
Right.
that's what's in your data. That's like what the gold is that most companies don't realize, that, they think, oh, our data sucks, or, we don't have enough,
Exactly.
or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that if you're paying your people right, you've already got more than enough data to do some interesting stuff with. And so
Exactly.
what we did together, just as a kind of brief overview, is you guys were dropping data into our system. We were identifying these destiny moments. Then we could identify, who was at risk of leaving, who was the upline that needed to know, and how could we tell that upline a very specific conversation to have with that person that is actually what it's going to take to save them, right? Because two people might be on their way out, or might be at risk of leaving in the last 30 days of their life cycle, but what it takes to keep them both might be very different, right? So you've got to be able to work that in and automate that in the messaging as well. And then, of course, we got to report that back to you guys and show you, how are people engaging with this? How can we actually measure that? Because we alerted somebody and we know that they made the call, and we know that that person didn't churn, and we know that there's this much money, in the bank right now. And how can we do better? How can we continue to A/B test? Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like, and what you learned from it?
Right, absolutely. And I can go straight to step number 3. Step
Okay.
number 3 is the most important part into the field. We all train it the same way. You have to have a reason and a purpose to reach out to anybody in your downline, regardless of whether it's retention or for acquisition. And what we thought it was going to be, we had a very great understanding of what it was going to be going into it. And it was exactly what it was. People were going to get great messages that provided them that purpose and the reason to make that reach out, where they would spend the best time, the most valuable time that they can spend if they don't have a lot of time, was with that message that they received. But it also did something else. We're all about contact. And this process, ability to work where they're already at on their phone, made for just an amazing opportunity for us to continuously be assured that what we gave them was a tool that wasn't going to either waste their time, it wasn't going to maybe put them down the wrong trail. It was the best place. And we saw all kinds of interactions, and our field is always super creative, always incredibly innovative on the way they
Yeah, your
reach
leaders
out.
were very engaged, I remember.
They were
Yeah.
very engaged, because what happened is that here's what they did. They took an opportunity to retain 2 people, because you have a person on your screen as an example, Maria Flores, right? Well, if I got the alerts, but I didn't actually personalize or personally, I know who she is, but you, Michel, was the one that actually sponsored Maria.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't been very engaged recently. I would actually go to you. This is what our field did. I would actually go to you and say, hey, Michel, we have a very short list of people that are very special to the company that gets alerted every day, and it's your time to reach out to that person. Or they would reach out to them and let them know, A, about the alert, 2, about this new AI technology that we came out with, was what everybody wants to be a part of a company that's moving forward, and then put it in their hands and let them know about the value as well. So all of that took place, and now we would see, not all the time, but in many cases, because they started training their own organization to do the same, not 1, but sometimes 2 people were being retained. So it was just an amazing opportunity and experience we had with this device and this technology.
Really happy to hear that, Sharif. I want to kind of blast through a little bit of the analytics. We were able to show like really good engagement. About 50% of the people that we sent opportunities to actually made the call, did the income producing activity that we asked them to do.
Right.
And so about 10% of all those people at risk ended up staying longer and continuing to buy, continuing to sell, continuing to recruit. And so in summary, there were 3 things here for everybody that Sharif has kind of spearheaded. 1, we talked about segmentation and promotion. 2, retention bonuses and the transparency of really being able to trust your field to know that retention is important, and let the elephant in the room be acknowledged, that people leave, right? And that it's our job to keep them. And then working with us on distro and focusing on that behavior at scale. I want to move it to Q&A because we've only got a few more minutes here, about 5 more minutes. You'll see a Q&A button. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask now. I've already gotten one. Sharif, this is a question for you. How were you able to track the Be Your Best, Beat Your Best incentive? And is there any easy way to automate it?
So for that incentive specifically, we had all the tracking built on the front end. So we utilized their back office space to put up a dashboard of exactly what they did at that same those within those same pay periods a year ago, and put all the stats right there, and then pull the same numbers for that time frame that we wanted, and they would see it automatically in their back office. So it was a live report with the system that we were using. At this case, we were using this one at Advocare, and so it was a live report that updated them as we go, and so that they got updated. Of course, we had our master report, but so it was done through our IT system and tracking it that way. Was there a second part to that question?
No, that was the second part of that question. I'm getting a question about us, and does Direct Tech Labs integrate with Direct Scale? The answer is yes. In terms of us, we can work with any back office provider. We don't actually require direct integration. It's just a one-way data drop. We can do the integration if we need to, but there's lots of different ways to do it that are actually quite simple. IT people really love us. You'll see actually the next session here is coming up on December 1st with Gareth Hooper. Many of you probably know who Gareth is, very well-known CIO in the industry. Actually, Sharif, you worked with him in the past.
I did, and I have a lot of great things. He's one of the most brilliant and one of the most talented executives I've ever worked with. He's someone you want to listen to for sure.
Great. If you have any more questions, you're welcome to ask now. While we've got Sharif here, you also see our contact information is on the screen for you. So if you're looking to stay connected with ourselves or with Sharif, you can reach out to us directly. We did offer that we have that calculator. So if you're curious of what is retention really worth for me, if I could increase my monthly retention by a 1% or 5% or whatever percent you want, what would that actually be worth? Happy to provide that calculator for you. And happy to set up any kind of demos or anything like that you need from us. And I'm sure, Sharif, you'd be happy to interact with anybody if they have any follow-up questions with you.
Right. And just going back, if we're waiting for another question, if I may, the Be Your Best, Beat Your Best, the example that we use for this one, so that was inspired through the segmentation. What we thought we had was 3 different types of accounts or people, but what we learned we had was 9, or really actually even a little bit more than 9 different types of people. So we decided to leverage that. And that's what led us to the inspiration of that type of promotion, is seeing where the biggest impact was going to be made. And it truly led us to create a promotion that was going to truly impact the largest group of people. So for like the group that you're looking at right now, you can just look and see what group is the biggest. And if that group moves, and if you have a promotion that's going to speak to that group of people, then you'll know what that does to, and then you'll know whether it's worth it to engage with IT to create that type of back office, and you'll space out the time. So it was worth it for us. We had a very large group of people that we believed we were going to move, and that promotion ended up doing that.
Yep. And what's interesting a lot of times about looking at segmentation is you kind of get a little bit of a different perspective on who your people are than other ways that people traditionally look at them. And so, there are all these different types of opportunities and ways to approach come up that never really presented themselves as opportunities before. For example, we had a customer who realized, hey, if we've got this group, right here, and they're the lion's share of new sales for us, but they don't really make more money than they spend. How can we engage them instead of trying to make them all leaders when we know that less than 1% of them will be that? How do we engage with them maybe a little bit differently to help them stay on board, because their tenure is like half as long as anybody else? And if we could just make this group go from 1 year and 1 month tenure to 1 year and 3 months tenure, that's like a huge increase for this company. It was like $60 million.
That's right.
And none of them had to get promoted, and none of them had to win a big prize or anything to do that. They just had to do what they were doing for 2 more months. And so it led to a whole other group of possibilities of ways that we can engage and communicate with people. So yeah, Sharif, thank you very much. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we're just at the 30-minute mark. It's been wonderful having you. I hope you guys will all stay in touch with Sharif. Let's have you back again and keep going. I know 30 minutes, it just kind of goes by right like that. I hope you all had great value out of this. We'd love to hear your feedback. Recordings will be available, and look for a follow-up email with our next guest, which will be Gareth Hooper on December 1st. On December 15th, we've got Roxana Epps, who is the Director of Retention Strategy at Young Living. And then following that in January, we'll have yet another guest to be announced. So stay in touch with us. If you need anything, we're here for you. And thanks everyone for listening. Have an awesome rest of your day. Thank you again, Sharif.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.